In 2014, Brock Lesnar shocked the world when he ended The Undertaker's iconic WrestleMania streak, defeating the legend in what is honestly quite an ugly match to watch, delivering 3 thunderous F5s to stun the crowd into silence. And this isn't just this audience was... You could have dropped a pin and it would have deafened everyone in a 20-mile radius. The Undertaker was 21-1 at WrestleMania, and the streak was no more, as Lesnar went on to dominate the WWE for years to come as a multi-time world champion, whereas Undertaker would limp on along as a part-time attraction, becoming Mr. Saudi Arabia, and now he doesn't have his special WrestleMania drawing power anymore. However, what if Lesnar didn't win? Things could have been very different for both Brock and The Undertaker had the streak remained intact. This is the alternate reality in a world where Undertaker goes 22-0 at WrestleMania 30. Welcome to Honor Wrestling Club, and we'll be answering the question, what would have happened if the Undertaker's streak wasn't broken at WrestleMania 30? Welcome to the club. Following an alternate reality in which he won at WrestleMania 30, we can see The Undertaker's next couple of years developing in more or less the same way, facing the promising Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania 31, and then going up against Shane McMahon a year later, although this could have been John Cena if Cena hadn't got injured, but we'll assume Cena still gets injured, so he still fights the boss's son for reasons. Maybe they'll explain them a bit more. In the case of Wyatt, there would have been an even bigger push from fans for him to be the one to end the streak. However, we feel that Vince would still not have pulled the trigger on Wyatt, especially for a spot as historic as that. This now brings us on to WrestleMania 33. We can still see The Undertaker going head to head here with Roman Reigns. However, this time, Reigns' victory, and Reigns still wins here, it's the one that ends the streak, sending him to 24-1, I think? Would then be it? 23-1 maybe? 24-1 is what he'd be. In reality, Reigns became the second man to defeat Taker at WrestleMania. However, if Lesnar had failed, then we can fully see the powers that be in WWE giving that spot to Roman, much to the chagrin of the crowd. Reigns got a lot of flack for this win, even when he was 23-2, but it would have been even more visceral had he been the one to actually end the streak. Therefore, we can see WWE's hand being forced much sooner on a Reigns heel turn, perhaps unlocking the Tribal Chief much earlier than it happened in reality. Hopefully we'd still get that great This Is My Yard Now promo on the Raw after Mania. Things would have been very ugly for Reigns though, as being handed the streak would have turned fans against him, likely forever. Maybe he could have turned face a few years down the line, but it would have been a very hard road back. Lesnar could bear the weight of such a feat, however Reigns in 2017 probably wasn't ready for that. Either way, this is what would have happened in the alternate reality, we imagine. Now we've tackled what would happen to Taker, let's move on to Brock. Many forget that heading into WrestleMania 30, Brock was beginning to get a little stale due to suffering huge losses at the hands of Cena and Triple H, and needing help to beat CM Punk. No one had any expectation that he'd actually end the streak. When he did, things turned around for Lesnar, and he felt like an even bigger, mega, main event star and an unstoppable force, with WWE then having the confidence to have him squash John Cena at SummerSlam. If he lost to The Undertaker, then WWE might not have been so bold. Beating Cena is still likely a scenario in this alternate reality, but there is no way we'd have seen the surreal squash match that took place at SummerSlam. We'd have more likely seen what happened at Night of Champions instead. Additionally, Lesnar would not have felt like the ultimate one to beat in WWE, so he would have lost much sooner to Roman Reigns, likely at WrestleMania 31 being the likely setting, which was WWE's original plan. So no heist of the century. Lesnar would have continued in his part-time role, but his star power would have been greatly diminished, and not be what it became to ended the streak. And he likely would have parted ways with WWE much sooner because of this. Probably could have ended up in AEW actually. Now we could move back to what would have happened with The Undertaker following his shock loss to Roman Reigns. Now he actually did plan to retire at WrestleMania 33 anyway in real life, even losing to Reigns going 23-2. However, due to the performance in the match, he would come back again and again and again to attempt to redeem himself. This didn't actually end up happening. We got the Saudi Arabia matches instead, so he probably should have just stayed retired, but he would remain in WWE as an active competitor for another 3 years before retiring. However, had he entered WrestleMania 33 with the knowledge that he was going to end the streak, it's easy to imagine him putting in way more work to get in good physical condition to really deliver against Roman, putting him over in the absolute best way possible. Taker's loss would have been seen as an emotional farewell. It was quite emotional anyway, with him leaving all his gear in the ring and the slow, lowering down the ramp. And we also, the positives, real positives coming now. We'd never have to have seen Undertaker versus Goldberg, DX versus the Brothers to Destruction, or The Undertaker winning that stupid 2-8 trophy. Now granted, we wouldn't have got the Boneyard match. Maybe it's good that Brock broke the streak, because that's a really fun match. I'm going to argue that losing those 3 Saudi moments is worth sacrificing the Boneyard match, so yeah. Now the question can be asked, could WWE have teased him back with money? Sure, however, if he'd have put in a satisfying performance at WrestleMania 33, which we think he would have done had the streak been ending then and there, then he probably would have just sailed off into the sunset until, I guess, 2024, when he decides to start his podcast, and then do the LFG stuff, and then the NXT appearances. And there you have it, there is our video. So what do you think would have happened if Brock hadn't been the one to break the streak at WrestleMania 30, and that honour, I guess, had gone to Roman instead of 33? Let us know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button if you are new around here. That's all for now, so I'd like to thank you for watching, and we'll see you later. Welcome to the club.